exile? Is it justice? Revenge? Honor? No. It is power. We felt your deeds. Felt their shockwaves ripple through the void. You have our attention. Now you must keep it. Your limits will be tested. The stars themselves will bear silent witness. How far will you bend before you break? Drives you, exile? Is it justice? Revenge? Honor? No. It is power. You have our attention. Now you must keep it. Your limits will be tested. The stars themselves will bear silent witness. How far will you bend before you break?
Hey, I'm Cyclone. I think I finally managed to get back to a state where I can finally share the upgraded and updated version of the high investment Lightning Arrow Deadeye. Now over the past few weeks I tested a lot, I just tinkered around with it, and I think based on what I have now, I have a really good final version of it, only missing 2 upgrade stages to have a finished, very high investment build that can just do almost all content in the game super fast. And I'm really happy to the result I got. Now, not everything I've gotten myself, I figured out myself. There's a few things that I've gotten from just checking other people's stuff, and I will mention when we get to that, of course. But other things I need to mention beforehand. I tested 100% Delirium maps, and while I am able to run them, they do take quite some time. And this means that while it is technically doable, this build isn't the best for 100% Delirium maps. It's really good for 80, but unless you go for the very highest of investments with a mirror tier bow, with synthesized ring, with Calandra's touch, and everything I already have on top of that with Mage Blood, with the perfect flask, perfect tree, 100% Delirium maps are still a bit too hard. If you're looking into that farming, I recommend looking for a build that is set up a bit more efficiently, specifically for very hard high Delirium maps. This is more really just a fast, good general mapper. The next thing I do need to mention is that, of course, this is a really high investment variant. If you're just getting started with this, if you're just getting started with Lightning Arrow, you're looking for a smaller, affordable upgrades. In the top corner, I'm going to leave an info card that you can click on, that you can see the original guide for the Magic Find version and for the low investment version. Of course, the high one I'm updating here right now. Alright, that being said, hopefully I haven't scared everybody already off, but now let's take a closer look at what I've did. We're going to do this as just a classical build guide, so with the POB in the description of course, and we're going to start with the Ascendancy. Pantheon and Bandits aren't really any changes, so we're going to look for Ascendancy first. The Ascendancy itself hasn't really changed, however there is one thing that you can do based on Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh. Avatar of the Slaughter is the one we want. It's really strong and it's just giving us a ton of movement speed and damage. But it is also very expensive. If you want to go in a very high investment state, but this is something you want only later on because it isn't that much required, an alternative that is actually really good is the following. Any of Gathering Winds, Focal Point, Ricochet, Endless Munition or Fast Shot, any of these you can allocate over Forbidden Flame Jewels and then use the other 4. So that you have those 5 from the Deadeye. It's going to help you a bit with clear, it's going to make it feel a bit better, but in the end you do want to end on the Forbidden Flame Jewels for Avatar of the Slaughter. It just gives us 10 to 15% increased damage. In a POB, not in-game increased damage. Just really strong. Other interesting changes we did to the tree is we cut the whole bottom passing to the jewel socket, to the frenzy node, to the life, and also to totems or the frenzy charges here. We don't need that anymore, instead we're going to go for 1 large and 2 medium clusters. On the clusters we want Arcing Shot, Feats of Fury and Martial Prowess. We're going to have a way where we have infinite overleech, so that Feats of Fury will always be active. We're going to have a way to just fully utilize this cluster. And also for medium, Quick Getaway for the movement speed and Pressure Point for the double damage, as well as combined with Arcing Shot and some other changes we did to be guaranteed 100% crit chance, or almost 100% crit chance while mapping. Just really strong combination. Other things that need to be mentioned on the passive tree is that we moved away from Charisma. We only take 1-8% node here. We are back on Inspired Learning because we do want to use a Mage Blood on this version now. And we are also going to, or at least in my variant, I'm grabbing Intuition and this small Spell Suppression node. I need those to get my Spell Suppression capped without using the Spell Suppression Mastery. Instead I could take here the Movement Speed Mastery, or I could take whatever else I prefer. There are some things you could consider. You could take Nearby Enemies Are Intimidated, which is a nice thing to have. You could take, I don't know, You could take the prevent 3% of suppressed spell damage. I opted for the movement speed, so I have a bit of faster downtime mobility. But yeah, those are the notable tree changes. Now we get to the gem section. And here are the most significant changes. Instead, on the clear one, let's start there, yeah. On the clear skill, we aren't using GMP anymore to get a bigger projectile cone. We have an insane amount of damage and we are looking to do even juiced content very easily. So instead of going for additional projectiles, which we don't really need at this point, 6 is more than enough with the new setup, we are going with crit multi. Crit multi, Trinity, elemental damage, inspiration, and Mirage Archer. This combination, our lightning arrow has 6 projectiles, a ton of damage, and just kills most stuff. And everything we aren't killing with our lightning arrow alone, well, we have a new technique. I've seen this from Snoobay. I don't know if he got it somewhere else. I've just seen him using it on stream and I tested it out and I did like it, as this is mainly a mapper using a mana forged lightning arrow, burning arrow, ice shot setup. So having 3 mana forged 4 links basically feels really good. We have additional clear and we still have like roughly 4 or 5 million single target damage from these on top of our clear skill. So for a mapper this is really huge. For bossing I would say the totem is still stronger because we just have more high damage lightning arrows, but for clear definitely this is a really good pickup. We achieve this by having a 6 link where we link burning arrow, lightning arrow and ice shot, each with 1 mana forged arrow, 1 elemental damage with attacks, preferable awakened, and 1 anomalous inspiration support. And this way we have, whenever we attack once with our lightning arrow, you can see how they are just triggering. Our lightning arrow of course only costs a few mana, so we do need, because one is 3, other one is 2, the other one is 1. They don't always trigger, but if you're just in a map and spamming, they're almost activated. You can see it here. If I just hold it down, I'm constantly spamming them. It just feels really good in a map. So you might have also been able to see in the example map. Another change is that we dropped power charge on crit on our frenzy mana forged. We still use this to guarantee frenzy charges, but we don't need the mana forged, we don't need power charge anymore because we are already pretty close to capped. Then we replaced our sniper's rock with assassin's mark. This one, as far as I remember, I think was from Substractum that did the testing. And he noticed that Assassin's Mark, based on Vengeant Cascade, based on Lightning Arrow or Ice Shot, or any piercing projectile, is actually better than Sniper's Mark. Sniper's Mark, of course, gives us huge damage, but what happens with Sniper's Mark is you fire your shot, it hits the boss, and then it splits off, because splitting is before pierce. We don't pierce it and can come back, but it splits off and the split projectile then come back to us eventually. But by splitting off the enemy, is a chance that they aren't actually going behind him and then going back around the enemy and not getting the double damage actually. With Assassin's Mark we are guaranteeing the double damage. With Sniper's Mark we aren't guaranteeing multiple damage anymore, and there's also no more shotgunning. All the projectiles that split off seem to be of the same layer. So if multiple would hit the boss, they only take the damage once from these splitting projectiles instead of taking from each. So there is just no point in Sniper's Mark anymore, just Assassin's Mark, easy crit cap, and good to go. And then we also have a bit of change in our mana setup, as you can see. We're getting to Berserk last, of course. Instead of using Grace and Determination, which is huge survivability, and if you are aiming to get to level 100, definitely the way to go. However, in my version, I'm already at level 100. I don't mind dying every few maps once, so I have a really solid survivability layer combination. It's again something I've seen Snoobay doing on Magic Find, and I tested it on non-Magic Find, and even here it works really well. We are combining our Petrified Blood, which takes 75 damage, 40% of our damage we take is prevented initially, so we only take 60%, and then of that 60%, then of that other 40%, with 75, which is 30, we take over 3 seconds. Now if we add Progenesis on top, we are preventing 65% damage. So we only take 35% damage initially, and then on top of that, we are only taking 55% of our damage over the next 4 seconds. Now that damage we take over time, we again can just consistently with our leech counteract it, and we don't really notice it, except we just getting bombarded with all the damage. And that are the moments where we get one-shotted, or there are just too many stuff hitting on us. We do gonna die eventually. But again, if we are level 100 build, that isn't really of any matter to us. We are very fast, we just respawn, log back into the map, and run back. But yeah, with this combination, we are now a very, very tanky build, and only our leech is really needed. The flask mastery isn't needed, and we don't really need the vitality. The vitality we are actually using for our Chaos Spirit gloves, but we get to that in a moment. So with this setup, with the rage region we're going to get, like I said, in a moment, now we have the Berserk. And Berserk is both a huge offensive and defensive layer. And if I'm going to activate it here, you're going to see how long it actually lasts. We are using a helmet enchantment for that. Again, we're getting to the gear in a moment. But yeah, we have a huge uptime on Berserk. And when it eventually runs out, which it has to because it is cumulative, taking more rage every second, you can now see that it's on cooldown, it's turning up, and the moment it's off cooldown, which is now, we can activate again. It's almost full, it's going a bit further full, and a bit before it's hit to 50 again, it's now starting to lose. So we have almost 100% uptime on Berserk, except of course those 5 seconds of cooldown that we need to wait. But the moment Berserk is up again, we can immediately use it, and we can just continue having it up. There again, going to use it, it goes up till about 45, 46, 47, and now it's turning back down, and we're slowly using it again. It's just a really consistent Berserk uptime. And this is both mobility, damage, and of course also a lot of tankiness. Just really solid. Which brings us to our gear. Now, on our gear there are not that many changes. The most notable one is, instead of using any gloves, we are of course using Chaos Spirit gloves. We have spell suppression capped with other gear and tree. And then we have the Spirit gloves with a frenzy charge because Avatar of the Slaughter. And we just have all the rage regen fueling in that. Other gear is really just life, chaos res, spell suppression, and then some avoidance on body armor and boots, some reservation efficiency on body armor and helmet, and then there's also more regen on the helmet, and then of course there's also the Berserk enchantment that allows us to have that much Berserk uptime. The other notable change I would say, I guess, is the ring. Because we're using a Mage Blood, because we're using resistance on a flask, we can allow ourselves to get rings that have just a lot more stats for a bit more Omni, and also crit multi, because crit multi on a bow build is actually the thing we have the least of, but it's still a huge more multiplier, so we do want to get some crit multi. And then of course there's also the bow. Now, still, my end goal is getting to a mirror tier bow. I'm still working towards that, but I always keep doing some of the other upgrades because they are better and just making my mapping a bit faster, so I can faster to the mirror. Some tiny stat bags to have a better experience, I would say. So right now I'm using a 1.9k DPS bow, but I definitely do want to aim for that mirror tier bow that will just make this build even more insane, and even would grant me Rampage again, as we are not using Shadow and Dust anymore. We don't really have Rampage, but we do have Rage. So this for the end goal of the league. The other upgrade that I'm still missing is that instead of a normal Amethyst ring, I want to synthesize with a frenzy charge, and I want a Calandra's touch on the other ring, so that I have maximum amount of frenzy charges doable on my build right now, and just be even faster, even stronger, and even more damage, of course. So this really leaves us with just the last change. Of course, I do have a Mage Blood here. Don't really know what else to say. On a really high investment level, Mage Blood is just really that solid. Now, previous iteration I did use the Headhunter, but on my last strategy I ran with Inspired Learning, and I noticed that my time with Headhunter and with Inspired Learning was almost the same. So, as a logical result, a Mage Blood, which gives me more base movement speed and base damage, on top of inspired learning should result in a better overall mapping time and just in a faster build. So I went for that. Went for the Mage Blood, combined it with inspired learning on the tree, and that together is giving me a really fast build that is also really strong just. And for the flask then, we have our curse effectiveness suffix still, so I don't care about curses. We have movement speed, so we have fast build. We have the resistances, and on the final one we have region, so we get to our rage region needed to get this consistent rage setup. In the flask itself are diamond, quicksilver and silver. I tinkered around with sulfur with a defensive flask, but we don't really need the defensive flask. And I also tested around with the quartz flask. However, I had the passive points on the tree weren't giving me as much damage as if I would have used a sulfur flask, and I just needed the spell suppression from the quartz flask. I don't really need the phasing. So with this we now have the sulfur flask for a lot of damage, and we use the points on the tree to get the spell suppression in our setup. But yeah, that's really all the changes. Of course, if you have any questions or if I forgot anything, you can ask me as usual in the description or in Discord over PM or on my server, or you can ask me in-game when I'm online, or you can ask me on Twitch while I'm live streaming. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.